It's the fallout after the brawl out. How consequential are the suspensions? What does it mean for the Hornets going forward? And we'll cook up a little Schnall Star appetizer for you ahead of All-Star Weekend. That's all today. Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We are free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that does include YouTube. Want to remind you about the Everydayers Club, by the way. We'll give you more on that in just a little bit, but you can find some of the information in the show notes. And because you guys are sickos and you subscribe and you like and you rate us on YouTube and you make us your first listen every day, Locked On is now the #1 sports podcast network out there. So we very much appreciate it. We won't waste any more time. Let's just get into it. I was waiting on releasing an episode. No Doug Branson today. Was waiting to release an episode solo because I wanted to be able to discuss the suspensions in full, but I have Wes and Walker starting at 12 o'clock. I'm actually giving you this episode. I'm recording it at 10 a.m. Recording it at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, and we still do not have the suspensions from the NBA. So I wanted to get the suspensions in before we could so we could talk about it as we confirmed the number of games that Moussa Diabate was going to be suspended for and Miles Bridges was going to be suspended for. But we still do not have that information. You know, asking around, it looks like the NBA will probably, well, one, they're going to dish out the suspensions at really any time now. They are obligated by the rule book to hand out the suspensions before the game against the Atlanta Hawks. So just in case you were wondering, it's not, hey, well, okay, if they're still kind of collecting evidence and going over the film, is there any way that Moussa and Miles could be available for this Hawks game on Wednesday or tonight? But no, that's not going to happen. The NBA will come down with the suspensions before, because that's what the rule book states they have to do. The suspension will commence prior to the start of their next game. So look, I'm going to talk about this in a way that is evergreen because, you know, we could discuss, you know, okay, how many games are they going to get, whatever. I think you're going to get multiple for Moussa. I don't think it passes 5. I think 5 would be the max. Same thing for Miles. I don't think Miles Bridges is going to get more than 5 games. The only thing that would come into play is Miles Bridges' off-court history, and I don't think that's going to come into play here. So I think both of those guys will get suspended less than 5 games, but still multiple. The real question is, right, because you're going into All-Star game and you have a break, so you can figure some of this stuff out just logistically, like how are we going to run our team if you're Charles Lee and company with 40% of your starting lineup at least out for what I suspect will be a couple of contests. The next games that you have on your schedule, tonight against Atlanta, you wait 8 days, and then next Thursday, it's Houston coming to town. Just beat them, but Houston still a good basketball team. Cleveland coming to town. That's February 20th. And then you have a road game against Washington. So those are the games that you could be without Miles Bridges and Moussa Diabate. Chicago, Indiana are the 2 games that are at the very end of this next 5-game sample that you have. Atlanta, #1. Houston 2, Cleveland 3, Washington 4, Chicago 5, and then I guess Indiana would be 6. So I wouldn't expect them to miss the Indiana game. Outside of the question of how many games Miles and Moussa are going to get, we got to figure out if LaMelo is going to get a game. And I don't know how surprising that is to people that might not be as online or as on Twitter as everybody else, but there's a real shot. And in fact, I don't want to say probability, but there is a very, very real possibility that LaMelo Ball is suspended. And if he is suspended, it is only going to be for 1 game, because there's only one very specific rule that he violated. He left the general vicinity of the bench during an altercation. So just going back to the rule book, so you guys get it as verbatim and as clear as day, here's what's written in the rule book, okay? During an altercation, all players not participating in the game must remain in the immediate vicinity of their bench. Violators will be subject to suspension without pay for a minimum of 1 game and fined up to $50,000. So if you go back and you review the film, LaMelo, the only wiggle room that you have is the immediate vicinity of their bench. So immediate, that doesn't provide as much wiggle room as general vicinity. If it was general, then maybe you could get away with some stuff here if you're LaMelo. But even so, not really. If you go back and watch the film, LaMelo leaves the bench. He's out of bounds baseline before one of the assistant coaches, they go and grab him and they stop him. And I think if LaMelo stops right there, then he might be able to play the next game and you get out without any suspension. But then you have the recharge from Moussa. Then you have Miles Bridges involved. But really, once Moussa kept going at Jalen Duren, that's when LaMelo got away from the assistant coach, which now he's worried about everybody coming off of the bench, right? Heads up play by the coaching staff, but there's only so much manpower. LaMelo, it's not like he was fighting anybody to get over there, but he just kind of wanders with the assistant coach looking for some other players that might be coming off of the bench, and he's trying to relay the message. You guys are going to get suspended. We need all the players that we can get. You guys are going to be subject to fine. Nobody can do this. But LaMelo is just kind of going back and forth. There's a lot of comedy to this just because there's a lot of comedy with LaMelo anyway. He's almost frolicking out there. Like, he doesn't do anything malicious whatsoever. I would really hope, honestly, if it wasn't in the rule book, it would be clear he doesn't deserve a suspension. And the word deserve, if you wanted to point that out and emphasize that, he absolutely does not deserve a suspension in any of this. But the rule is, right, if we want to just speak actual factuals, the rule is you cannot leave the immediate vicinity of the bench, which he clearly did. There is no wiggle room with the word immediate. So, okay, now that LaMelo is out frolicking amongst the action, I have to imagine that the NBA is going to give him at least one game. And even if he doesn't throw a punch, he doesn't even really get in the mix for a while. He's like directing traffic almost, and he's pointing to the Moussa corner where Khan and a couple of other people are holding him back in security. And then he sees Miles get into it late, actually. You know, Miles and Beef Stew are going at it, or there's an altercation over there just for a little bit before LaMelo even realizes what's going on. Then he goes over there to just see what's happening. But even still, he's kind of out of the traffic. So he doesn't, you know, you're not worried about him getting hurt or getting involved whatsoever. I'm worried about the LaMelo suspension because I think it's coming down. I think he's going to get one. Would love to be wrong, but I think he's going to get one. The only other thing to ask here real quickly is Tre Mann. He also leaves the bench. And the problem, like the reason I think Tre actually has a real shot of not getting a suspension is because he leaves the bench, but he stops short of the paint, right? If you're just viewing Tre leaving the bench and then going in a straight line where the altercation happened between Moussa and Jalen Duren and everybody, if you go into a straight line, he actually stops short of getting to the paint. Now, I mean, if you just asked my interpretation of the rule, if you wanted to be very, very strict about this, you could say that is not the immediate vicinity. Tre Mann, rules are rules. You're going to get suspended for at least one game. You could go over the film and you could try to argue your case, but I do not consider that the immediate vicinity. However, what I hope the NBA does is I hope that they recognize Tre Mann's consideration of the rule and the coaching staff's consideration of the rule, where he stops and then he's brought back to the bench and he doesn't get involved anymore. So, like, I hope just the recognition that the rule is in place where he goes out and says, oh, wait, all right, I forgot about it. Let me just take a step back. I think that's the rule doing its job. And what I would hope happens is that the NBA rewards him for thinking of the rule and then abiding by it as soon as it clicked in his and the coaching staff's brain, and they don't give him a game. Because, look, as much as Tre has struggled this season, you need some ball handlers now. You guys know my whole thing about Tyus Jones and Mike Conley not being on the team anymore. I thought that was a big deal. But now, here's what is at play, okay? No Tyus Jones, no Mike Conley. They're off the team. They're not members of the Hornets. Kobe White, who is a member of the Charlotte Hornets, is not available to come back until after the All-Star break with his injury. So no Kobe White as a ball handler that you would lean on a lot in this situation. Okay, so now you can go to Tre, who's been giving you backup point guard minutes, But if Trey is out, now you don't have Trey to help LaMelo, who I think is also going to be out. If I had to predict something, I would think that he gets one game. So, buddy. Zion James is it, man. That's your ball handler. That's your point guard. If Atlanta wasn't so bad defensively, then I would tell you that we're going to see like 5,000 turnovers in this game. And I hope it's not true. Like I like Sion. He does, I actually really like Sion as a basketball player playing within his role, and they're trying to develop him. But in we're going after a playoff spot situation, you would just like to have more dribblers of the basketball that you can trust, more so than throwing a second round rookie in there that is going to have to play like 35 minutes alongside Khan. Like, think about your backcourt. You don't even have KJ Simpson anymore. He's gone. They waived him. So, yeah, the ball handling stuff, that might be an issue with LaMelo and Trey, especially LaMelo, subject to suspension. Let's move on. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Let's talk about long-term consequences, just season-long consequences that come from the altercation that we saw between the Hornets and the Pistons on Monday night and what it means for Charlotte going forward. We'll get to that in just a moment. Locked On Hornets. This episode is brought to you by ZocDoc. Finding a doctor you actually like can feel like discovering a diamond in the rough. Sure, you want someone who's in network nearby and has availability, but you also want a doctor who listens, that makes you feel comfortable and explains things clearly. That kind of doctor does exist, and you can find them easy with ZocDoc. ZocDoc is a free app and website that helps you find and book high-quality in-network doctors so you can find someone you love without all the hassle. We're talking about booking in-network appointments with more than 150,000. I don't want to shortchange them. 150,000 providers across all 50 states, covering over 200 specialties from primary care and dentistry to dermatology and eye care. I'll admit it. I've definitely put off going to the doctor quite a few times. Definitely put off those appointments longer than I should between work, life, and everything else. It's easy to delay, but ZocDoc is also easy. ZocDoc makes the process simple. You can search by specialty or symptoms and actually build a care team that works for you. So stop putting off those doctor appointments and go to ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNBA to find and instantly book a doctor you love today. That's ZocDoc, ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNBA, ZocDoc.com/LockedOnNFL. Either one of those work. Thanks to ZocDoc for sponsoring this message. More Locked On Hornets coming up. I want to remind you about the Everydayers Club. Thank you for making us your first listen. Thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. If you haven't already, go check out our new Everydayers Club. You get access to an ad-free audio feed for Locked On Hornets, compatible with Apple Pod, Spotify, every other major podcast app. And you can get an invite to the members-only Locked On Everydayer Club Discord server, which includes a group chat just for listeners of this show. So what you can do is you can go to the URL that I'm going to bring up here very quickly, and I'm going to stall just a little bit. All you have to do is go to lockedonhornets.supercast.com. That's lockedonhornets.supercast.com. Okay, so we don't have the suspensions in yet. Still, I'm refreshing Twitter like I'm expecting a Woj bomb, and I'm just not getting anything as of yet. So I think just to allow this to be evergreen is if Moussa or Miles get more than 3 games, you're talking about them missing Atlanta, Houston, Cleveland. If they get 4 or 5, that's when Washington and Chicago come into play. If you ask me, I think you would hope, one, B, you would hope that they're suspended as with the least amount of games as possible. I think you can navigate Atlanta because their defense is bad. And Atlanta's injury report is actually quite extensive. There are a lot of guys that are questionable coming into this game. So perhaps you can sneak out with a victory against Atlanta at home too. So you have the crowd at your back. And we saw how rocking the Spectrum Center was on Monday. So I believe there's going to be a lot of energy there. Houston, after the All-Star break, it's interesting because I do think the coaching staff can cook something up to get ready for the circumstances at hand with having over a week before you play Houston. And you kind of know what their deal is too. They're struggling a little bit. Dysfunction seems strong, but like some weird call outs from Ime Udoka, on Alperen Şengün with teams attacking him, putting him in tough situations. And I'll say this, really the biggest thing I'm worried about is not having LaMelo against Atlanta because you're only a half game back from Atlanta. And this is a big game as far as seeding goes. If you beat Atlanta, then you guys swap. Now Charlotte is 9 in the Eastern Conference standings. Atlanta is 10. And if you can somehow, some way sneak out with a victory, not having LaMelo, thank God you get LaMelo back for Houston, because there's just no way LaMelo is going to get suspended for 2 games. That's not what the rule calls for. So once you get LaMelo back, I think I can breathe a little bit easier. All right. Even if you want Moussa as much as possible, you want Miles as much as possible, you want that starting lineup intact as much as possible. Having LaMelo, that's the big deal. We've gone over the numbers. Him off of the floor compared to him on it, it is a world of difference because he makes everybody better. He makes everybody a lot better. So that's what we're looking at. Just with any amount of the suspensions that come Moussa and Miles' way, feel pretty good about what's going to happen to LaMelo if something happens with LaMelo. Okay, now with all of that being said, I look at what they're going through not only tonight, the next few games, but the season-long damage thing. If they do lose some of these games, now you're talking about losing valuable positioning in the Eastern Conference standings, right? Like we've talked about the idea of Charlotte possibly climbing all the way up to the 6th spot and just avoiding the play-in altogether. I don't know how much of a reality that's ever really been. I think it was certainly a possibility, though, right? So here you are, 15 games back. You're 5.5 games back of Philly right now. They're 6-4 in their last 10. They just lost their last game. But with there being about 30 contests left to go, I thought it was a possibility if Charlotte continued their winning ways. But not having the starting lineup out there, let's say you can't navigate these waters without your front court, without 40% of your front court. Yeah, it's going to be tough, man. Like not having Moussa, not having Miles, the things that you're looking at just from a basketball standpoint, right? The basketball implications. One, they run a lot of dribble handoffs at the top of the key / out there on the wing, out there on the perimeter. Moussa gives you a lot more versatility out there. No, he can't shoot, but I trust him putting the ball on the deck. He's so fast and quick that he can dive harder, create separation off of those hedges or switches, and smart, savvy passers like LaMelo, who can make any pass he wants to because of his height and his creativity, could slip it into Moussa on some of those dives. Moussa also on some of those dribble handoffs could decide that he's just going to take it himself and dribble with the fake pass or the fake handoff, because they run some of that every once in a while. And with Ryan Kalkbrenner, they run DHOs with him. It just looks a little scary. Like with him having the basketball in his hands, he's trying to take as big of a step out from the defense as much as possible to avoid those pesky hands coming in and batting the basketball loose. And so it just makes everything a little harder. You're kind of running through traffic on those DHOs. So that's something that I worry about just a little bit, right? The overall athleticism, even some of those like mid-range push shots that Moussa has been a lot better at and developed. You're not going to have that as much with Kalkbrenner. Kalkbrenner can hit it because his hands are phenomenal, right? Like, so how do you take advantage of what Kalkbrenner's strong suit is? Throw it up at the rim, probably going to catch it because his hands are so damn good. And then maybe we can create some of that like first 10 game magic where he's shooting 90% from the field. I think that's what you do with him. And the other thing is too, like they've been running a lot of sets where they put their big out there on the corner because, and it's a little weird, but just because those guys can't shoot. Kalkbrenner's not shooting. Moussa can't shoot outside of his 2 jumpers this year. But once you kind of work opposite side of whatever big you put in the corner, and then you get some kind of pick and roll, somebody rolling to the rim. Well, now these guys are crashing down hard. Moussa crashes, right? Like we know how he plays. That's just a speed that Kalkbrenner doesn't have. So speed, Moussa helps you out there more. But maybe on just bigger lobs that you trust Kalkbrenner is going to come down, maybe you just throw those passes a little bit higher. Kalkbrenner can go get it. Even if he's not flushing it off of the alley, he does a pretty nice job of keeping the ball up high. And so that's something that you could exploit offensively and work to your advantage. Like just overall, look, defensively, I think teams are going to be looking to manipulate his size in the paint a little more. You can't switch with Kalkbrenner out there on the perimeter like you can with Moussa, who just eats up guards that try him and think that they can beat him off the dribble. Sorry, you can't. Not your typical big. That's not what happens when Moussa's out there on the floor. The offensive rebounds, the rebounding in general, you're going to see a dip in production there. Now, Kalkbrenner is good at boxing out and then maybe having everybody else kind of gang rebound. And I'll say this about Kalkbrenner, man. I've liked his game. It's just Moose has been so special. Yeah, and I want to make that point clear. This isn't about Kalkbrenner being a bad basketball player or anything like that at all. It's that Moose has been so special. You know how I feel about him. He's been very, very good. So he's completely different than what you're used to seeing at the 5 spot as well. Kalkbrenner probably deters you from the rim a little bit more. You do the U-turn, right? You dribble in the paint, you see him, and then you dribble right back out. People try Moussa. Moussa deflects and protects the rim at a higher rate than you would expect somebody that small to do. But the rim the deterring, if you will, it's hard to say, the rim deterring of it all, goodness gracious, that helps him. That helps the defense. So keeping guys in front, and then Kalkbrenner as your line of defense, last line of defense, that's going to help you out quite a bit. So, yeah, I do like Kalkbrenner there. The thing about Miles, we can get to on the other side of the break, that guy has played so many minutes for you. You look at all the best lineups, Miles is in a lot of them. But what's interesting is the lineup that I expect to see play a lot of minutes with those guys out. I'm kind of intrigued, especially at the 4 spot. I'll tell you what I mean. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Deterrence, rim deterrence, Colby White. Anyways, I'll talk about Miles Bridges being substituted for with Grant Williams, what that means, and then talking about just more long-term ramifications. Also, Schnall-Star weekend, just giving you a little appetizer. I won't talk about it without Doug. Maybe we even get David Walker, who joins us, I believe, annually to discuss All-Star Weekend. So I won't spoil any of that content for you, but we'll just give you a little appetizer. Coming up next, LOH. Before I do, I want to tell you that this episode is brought to you by Wayfair. We appreciate Wayfair for helping us out, as always. The new year is here, and it's the perfect time to reset your routine and refresh your space. If you're spending more time at home, you might as well love how it looks and feels. That's why you should turn to Wayfair. It's a one-stop shop for getting your home back on track, from bedding and mattresses to storage solutions for every room. Wayfair makes it easy to start the year fresh. Wayfair has everything you need for a full home refresh all in one place. Whether you're updating your living room, organizing your space, or upgrading your work from home setup, Wayfair's huge selection makes it easy to find exactly what works for your style and your budget. I picked up new bedding, accent pillows from Wayfair. I'm just kidding. I didn't do any of that. Olivia did. But you guys get the idea. You could pick it up from Wayfair. I did pick up a sectional from Wayfair and absolutely love it. It's behind the camera. I got stuff all on it right now, so I don't want to turn the camera around just to show you, but it's real and it's spectacular. Love my sectional from Wayfair. They've helped your boy out a couple times, so you can get organized, refreshed, and back on track this new year for way less. Head to wayfair.com right now to shop all things home. That's WAYFAIR, wayfair.com. Wayfair, every style, every home. This episode is also brought to you by TurboTax. I need to pull up the graphic here just real quickly so everybody can see when they're watching on YouTube just how much TurboTax can help you. There you go for all the people watching us on YouTube. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert start to finish without the stress or guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person, or you can connect online. It really helps me out with all of these jobs that I have. Got the main one with Wes and Walker on WFNZ. Helps me out with Locked On Hornets. It helps me out with FanDuel Sports Network. It helps me out with all this stuff that I'm doing around here. So I couldn't do tax season without TurboTax. I very much endorse and use this product. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. You still got time. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit turbotax.com/local to book your appointment today. More Locked On Hornets coming up next. Okay. Talked a little bit about the differences with Moussa, more so offensively, but also Moussa and Kalkbrenner offensively, but also a little bit defensively too. Like just again, the rim deterrence. I think that helps you out quite a bit. Um, at the 4 spot, I am intrigued with Grant Williams running 4 when you get some semblance of your guys back. So the starting lineup that we're going to see out there, from what I expect at least, it'd be LaMelo, Khan, Brandon. That's your trio. Those are the starters still standing. Then you have Grant at the 4, and you have Kalkbrenner at the 5. So Grant at the 4 gives you more shooting, better shooter than Miles and what he's demonstrated. Can't attack off of the dribble nearly as well as Miles. Defensively, Grant is more of a tree trunk, not going to move him around. Not that Miles is weak in any way, shape, or form. He's very strong as well. It's just how Grant, that's his pitch, right? Like he gets up under you, is playing physical, moves his feet well enough, but Miles is a guy that's kind of flying a little bit more. I don't know if there's a lot of flying to Grant's game. He's a below the rim type of guy, but also can help you out with some second chance opportunities by pushing his dude under the basket every once in a while. I think he's starting to trust his leg and his knee a little more to anchor off of. But really offensively is what makes this very interesting to me because, one, I really like Grant at the free throw line serving as this offensive hub to pass to cutters, to pass to open shooters. So you run some, guard screen actions, have guys, fade, relocate. Grant can hit some dudes off of those passes from the free throw line. And he can still take you off of the dribble and just kind of mash his way in there. Not mush. Mash, not mush. We don't mush anymore. But he can kind of match his way in there and create some angles for him to score. But really, it's the shooting. So it's been a slog for this offense in the paint when LaMelo is not on the court. They just can't get a lot of stuff going from a creative standpoint because of the turnovers, especially against physical basketball teams. Now, Atlanta, again, not very good defensively. I don't expect us having to deal with no LaMelo outside of Atlanta. But just for the sake of tonight's game, I do wonder how well that they can penetrate, hit guys off cuts, and really just score around the rim. With Kalkbrenner, clearly that's the only place that he's scoring. But can you not commit 20 turnovers in this game? Can you get into the paint and then, whatever work just within 15 feet? But what I really like is Grant being able to spread the floor a little bit more and have some of that gravity at the 4 spot that you don't have as much of with Miles. So that's going to be interesting. You still have your gravity with the original trio within however many games you expect all of them to play. And LaMelo might play tonight against Atlanta. So if he does, then you have LaMelo, Brandon, Khan, and Grant all as real shooting threats. You got some space to work with, man, with all the 4 of those guys. And then you just have Kalkbrenner as your dunker spot, corner, crash down, pick and roll guy that just is heading to the rim. You got some space to work with all those guys. So I am intrigued with Grant and like what kind of looks you're getting there. The thing is, I looked up how many possessions that lineup has played together. Only 20 possessions this year. That's it. Numbers aren't very good, but I mean, only 20 possessions. It's a 0 sample. Like you're just not getting any of it. They played a little bit against Atlanta. It's the lineup that Charles Lee went to after the brawl against Detroit. And I think they got a little tiny bit of run against New Orleans. But Grant has just been back for a couple weeks now. Remember, Kalkbrenner was hurt just a little bit. So we have not seen this lineup at all, relatively speaking. And I am intrigued with some of the different looks that you might have if LaMelo's out. If LaMelo's out there on the court, if LaMelo's out, the last thing I'll address, then I guess it's SZN, Khan, Brandon, Grant Williams, Kalkbrenner. And it's going to be tougher, man. That's just how it is. Like that, if they can somehow beat Atlanta with 60% of the Killer Bees lineup not allowed to play, and you just hold on for dear life. We saw it in this game against Detroit because LaMelo couldn't play in that first little bit of the fourth quarter with him having gotten into foul trouble. So if you can hold on and then you get LaMelo back, as soon as you get LaMelo back, like I feel like there's just a chance at anything happening because he unlocks everything. So hopefully he doesn't miss any game, but just be ready for it. And last thing, too, I'll say, Charles Lee, in case there was anybody worried about him being suspended, that's not going to happen. He's going to be subject to fine, but he followed the rules as it states in the rule book. Just to read those with any kind of clarity, a player, coach, or assistant coach, upon being notified by an official that he has been ejected from the game, must leave the playing area immediately and remain in the dressing room of his team during such suspension until completion of the game or leave the building. It's exactly what he did. Violation of this rule shall call for an automatic fine, a fine not to exceed $50,000, and possible forfeiture of the game may be imposed for any violation of this rule. So no violation. You saw how quick Charles Lee went to the locker room. He had a whole bunch of bad words to say to the official, and as soon as Brandon and everybody was holding him back, and then he gets thrown out of the game, he immediately leaves. Don't expect any suspension for him. Really, we're just going to figure it out if it's going to happen with LaMelo and Trey, and we're trying to figure out how many games for Moussa and Miles. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your podcast, and that does include YouTube. Make sure you're subscribing, liking us, rating us, doing everything that you do with your favorite YouTuber. And then also you check out Doug's Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com, Yahoo Sports Daily with Jason Fitz and Caroline Fenton. And I'm on WFNZ, Wes and Walker, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your day. We'll be back with you tomorrow.